we're going to do a take on the leader of the opposition party federally, Pierre Poilievre, however you say his name. I call him PeePee, so just for easy reference, I will be using the name PeePee. So he's running in a guaranteed conservative stronghold that had 82% of the voters voting for conservative. Battle River, Crowfoot in Alberta, the heart of the redneck country. My question is, why would anybody want to parachute into such a redneck voting riding when you grew up in a city like Calgary and immediately after university moved to Ottawa area to represent a city out in the east and have been there over 20 years representing a riding in the east and then coming back to Alberta claiming that you're an Albertan? Okay. Sounds like an eastern city slicker to me, boys. Okay, I'll let you put your 2 bits in, Cal, since you're from the east and a city slicker.
Well, the first thing I would worry about if I were the people in the riding of Battle River Crawford is how did you get stuck with this candidate? It's not the candidate that you elected to represent the Conservative Party in your riding. It's the one the Conservative Party has decided to dump on you because he got dumped on in Ottawa. The man has been a lifelong politician. He lived blocks away from where he worked, which was Parliament. And as far as I can tell, he hasn't got one piece of legislation accredited to his name. So they're taking the trash out in Ottawa and they're dumping it in Alberta. So
Well,
I,
the
I
past candidate was a local farmer, from my understanding, so he understood the rural needs in such a large rural riding. It's a really low population riding because it's spread out over a large area. Like it's huge riding, right from Camrose right to the Saskatchewan border, which is 2-3 hour drive to the border, and then south to as far south past Drumheller, which is another 3 hour drive south, and it's a huge riding and mostly rural. So why would you think that getting rid of a farmer that could maybe represent your views in Ottawa to have a city slicker? Do you see that picture of him on a horse?
yeah, he's holding the horn. That's how they steer horses in Ottawa by the horn.
Yeah.
And the thing is, uh, he probably doesn't even know it's a horse.
Well, I think he knows what it is because he's on it. He probably thinks it's a jackass because that's all that you're really saying when you parachute into a riding, that you think the voters are jackasses and they'll vote for any moron that you say is going to represent them, even though the person has no skill, no assets, no values of merit for your riding. I mean, let's look at Battle River Crowfoot. It's an oil depleted riding, and what that means is the oil in the area has been tertiary and recovery methods already in majority of the wells. There's very few new wells coming on production. And what that means is the farmers have, a lot of them don't even get paid for the lease access on their farms. And they're being stuck with the bills for cleanup, access. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they're being stuck with. And the feds have given money to help out, but that's under Trudeau, they gave the money. And folks, when Harper was in power with this PeePee at his side, they never did one thing for the oil and gas industry in Alberta. We knew we were short pipelines. They never helped build pipelines. They never pushed laws to get pipelines through. They never assisted in the abandoned well aspects of the province. They never gave any assistance in trying to make sure that the foreign companies couldn't abandon wells and walk away from obligations. And guess what? Now he wants to represent and lead you down the path of destruction for your whole industry. Now he has no farm background that I'm aware of. And this is a majority of farm rural income, except for Wainwright, which is military based. And that in of itself, what did Harper with PeePee at his side do to the military veterans? You viewers should look that up, because he cut benefits, he cut health care to these veterans, and that's what you can expect by electing this guy as your leader, because he praises Harper, and Harper recommends him to you, the voter, in the last election where he was punted from his riding. He was booted out of his riding because he represented them for 20 years. And they knew after 20 years he was not doing one thing for their riding. And now you want him to represent you? Nothing ever done in the 20 years of representing his past riding, where it was a lot of urban setting. Now you want him to represent you in rural setting? Come on, give your head a shake. Your cap is a little too tight there around your brains if you think he's going to really represent you.
In any event, the riding voted overwhelmingly conservative ever since it was formed. Last time it was 80% conservative. So the conservatives feel that they can take advantage of the people in the riding and force, this person on them by just parachuting them in from Ottawa and putting his name on the list.
That's
now,
what's happened in fact.
Yeah, and there's some reasons why the conservatives think not only is this a conservative riding, but it's suitable for him. If the last census, only 6% of the people considered themselves a visible minority. 5% considered themselves German. It was even
that German component would have to be the Hutterite colonies.
Yes.
And they're a big organization now. The Hutterite colonies have benefited from getting rid of the wheat board, because they had the ability to store their grain and didn't have to sell it when they first come harvested off. And then what happens is they get the lowest prices if you have to sell your grain immediately instead of storing it for when there's a shortage of grain. And that's what the wheat board averaged out the pricing, so that you didn't get hit with the lows. And yeah, you lost out on some of the highs, but at least you could pay for your farm operation. Now a lot of the small farmers went broke. And one of the things that PeePee is he's in favor of getting rid of these supply management things for dairy, eggs, etc. Well, the German population, the Hutterite colonies, will benefit because they can overproduce now without the quotas in place and market it. And guess what? That's going to push the small farmers and mid-sized farmers right out of business. And we all know the Hutterites continually buy up lands to expand their colony base. They're great workers. They have a great farm model, but they're in competition with the large international corporations that are buying up all our farmland, and that's going to be a problem when you get rid of supply management. And PeePee is in to get rid of supply management. So,
to give you an idea too, I had the numbers wrong. It's 5% consider themselves indigenous. 27%, over a quarter of the population, claimed German heritage.
yes,
1/4.
And that would, there are large Hutterite colonies in the area. So there is this amount of people that would vote and should probably vote for PeePee is the Hutterite colonies. You should go out en masse and vote for him, because he's going to kill off all your competitive farmers, except for the large corporate farmers that are mostly internationally financed. They're going to buy up and compete with you. But that's how stupid you can be in your own riding. That's a rural riding. How can you be any stupider than voting in somebody that's going to get rid of supply management, which allows small farms to exist? And those small farmers are the backbone of all the small towns in the area. And if you're getting rid of them, I mean, there's a decreasing population for a reason in that riding. And it's a significant loss of population. It's because the small farmers are not viable and have been losing money, and as a result, they're having to leave or move to small towns, and they're not increasing the population in the area. When large corporations buy up all the farmland and the Hutterite colonies can buy up all the farmland, guess what? There's a smaller population. Now, if you vote for PeePee, that's exactly what you're going to get, a continuation of the degradation of the population and demand in the area. And we can know that because he was a part of Harper's regime that got rid of supply management, and there was a lot of whining and crying by small farmers that lost their asses and lost their farms. And the only ones that benefited were the large corporate farmers. Now, if that's what you want, Battle River Crowfoot riding, you'll get exactly what you want if you're going to be blind voting. So what's your take on the military positions of this PeePee?
Well, I'm not as familiar of his voting patterns as you were with respect to the military, but to give listeners a little more information here, in Poilievre's riding in Ottawa, only 2% of his constituents worked in the resource or agricultural sectors. So he knows nothing, he spent 20 years without being hands-on, I would presume. Now, I'm not suggesting that just because you represent people that don't know anything about a particular industry means you're ignorant in that industry. But when you add that to the fact that nothing has been done during the Conservatives' reign with respect to natural resources, it just follows. Like he's not a good candidate to represent the people of this riding. Now,
he's great with 3-word cliches. He's great. Axe the tax. Okay. Didn't you put in the GST? The Conservative Party put in the GST. Axe the tax, man. I mean, there's these cliches, but there's no meat to the matter of his cliches. He has no structured idea or concrete plan to present you. Like, what type of person are you electing in? He hires a spin doctor to spin a quick cliche on a subject so he doesn't have to deal with the meat of the matter. And as a farmer, you should be asking the solid questions. What is the meat of the matter? Can you produce something that benefits you? And no, he does not have it. He only has cliches and an ad campaign. Very effective, and he likes to slander his opposition, which is not the way I like to see politics. I mean, PeePee, if you had something solid to bring to the table, bring it. You can cliche your way right to the top of the pile as you have, but you never ever produced anything. You never did anything. Your track record speaks volume. And that's my point is, if you're going to have these leaders, have strong leaders, not people that are just paying you lip service. Up to Canadians to vote in leaders of the opposition, and guess what? A strong riding in the East said this guy does not bring anything to the table and punted him. So if you don't want anything done for your riding, by all means, bring them in.
And another thing as well, I've been sending emails to my representatives in Ottawa and leaders of the Conservative Party requesting their position on Palestine and the war on Gaza in particular, and have gotten nothing, absolutely nothing. Prior to the election, they were afraid, obviously, to tell the public what their position was with respect to the genocide. They refused to answer. Now, Poilievre, subsequent to the election, came out. He irrevocably depends on Israel and its right to defend itself, and totally ignores what Israel is doing to 70,000 deaths in Gaza, hundreds of thousands starvation. It's as if it didn't happen. And I think the people in this riding have the opportunity to send the conservatives a message with respect to one of the most important issues of maybe this century so far is another genocide, very equivalent in analogous in kind to what the Nazis did. So I think if Battle River Crawford wants to send a message, not only to the Conservative Party about being abused with a parachuted candidate, but the world with respect to how Canada feels about the genocide, don't vote for this clown. Now,
Well, his track record for Ukraine is just as bad and horrendous. He
well,
voted against aid packages when he was in Parliament to Ukraine years ago. He is not to be trusted, and because if we send in peacekeepers to any of these areas, because he does state, oh, we can, after conclusion of conflict, send in peacekeepers, he's going to still be cutting your health care, cutting your pension to these veterans that he's putting in harm's way. He has no care and concern for you, as indicated under Harper's term where he was standing beside Harper. So Wainwright is a military base. So why on earth would Wainwright ever support this character? I have no idea, but you might want to check the fine print on this guy instead of all his rhetoric that he's just playing to your cliche mind that he's going to do something when he really has done nothing in 20 years other than stick it in your back.
Now, you've looked over the list of candidates in this riding, and you had some opinions on some of them.
Yeah, there was a few that stood out. I mean, there's a Liberal candidate from Three Hills running in the riding. I forget his name, but if you're going to whine and cry and bitch and whatever that Ottawa does nothing for you, smart voters or strategic voting says send somebody to Ottawa that can influence the outcomes for your riding and have a voice in Ottawa. That means you send a Liberal. But Albertans aren't smart. They're dumbasses. So they go, well, we can't tolerate the Liberals. Trudeau this, Trudeau that, Trudeau this, Trudeau that. Okay, well, don't send somebody that can have a voice at the cabinet meeting or have a voice on policy by the federal Liberals, and you get what you get. Now, the Liberals are not going to listen to a Conservative out there, especially PeePee after he's been punted from one riding. He has no respect from the Liberals, so whatever he says by his actions says they're not going to listen to him. So you're getting zero representation unless he wins the government, and he's shown he can't win the government because he was leading in the polls and he lost. So your strategic voting is, if you're smart, and this is why Quebec is so good at doing what they do, is they strategic vote to get the best out of Ottawa. Sometimes they vote for the party that's in power. Sometimes they vote for opposition to it. And Alberta doesn't do any of that. And if you sent 10 Liberals to Ottawa, they would have a big power voting bloc that could influence the outcome for Alberta. So that's one candidate that you know, if you're truly smart, which we know the hat's too tight for most people in that area. Your other option was I seen a very strong candidate, Bonnie Critchley, I think his name is, and she's an independent. And her history is that she was in the military. She is rural. She understands the riding and lives in the riding. Now, that means a lot because she is not aligned to a party. And because you're Albertan, you wouldn't vote strategically for any party that could actually carry weight in your riding. So now you got an independent. And this independent seems pretty good. I mean, she knows where the shit's on the outside of the boots and the shit's on the inside of the boots, and that's probably why she ran against PeePee, because I think he's been filling his boots a little too much. And when you're looking at candidates, you should be looking strategically. And this Bonnie Critchley seems to have everything that the rural riding of Battle River, Crowfoot needs to represent them and would carry weight in Ottawa. Her voice would carry weight because they would listen to her. And Ottawa, the Liberals, need an outside vote from time to time to pass legislation. So guess what she could do for you? She could say, I'm not going to vote in support of you Liberals unless you give my riding this, and that. Or give Alberta this, and that. And that's called strategic voting. That's using your head for more than a hat rack. And why don't you start using your brains, people? This is what you need to do, and you should be doing it. Quit the rhetoric and allowing this parachute candidate to tell you you're going to get nothing from Ottawa if you vote for him. That's all he's telling you. You're getting nothing from Ottawa unless I win Ottawa, and then I'm not going to do anything for you because Harper was leading and we did nothing for my past riding, so I'm really not going to do anything for you because I'm not a rural person and I don't care about you. I'm just parachuted in to guarantee that I have a job and get to live in the residency for the opposition leader, and that's all you're getting, folks. You're not getting any merit to this candidate. But this Bonnie Critchley was pretty impressive. If you don't want to vote for strategic voting of a direct Liberal, vote for an independent that lives in your riding, has heart and care and concern for what happens to you. And I've never met the lady. I've followed her in the news. I've followed articles on her. She's pretty impressive, boys. And if your hat wasn't so tight on your head, you'd probably see it. So I'm saying take a look at this candidate, and maybe you could find that name on the list, or you could learn how to spell it. It's a lot easier to find than Poilievre, Pierre Poilievre. I'm not sure how they're going to find his name on the list, which is something I thought you could adhere to.
Well, the obvious thing is there's over 200 candidates that have entered this election, and the last time around, of course, Poilievre blamed the elites in the media for his loss. Of course, it had nothing to do with his policies. But this time, he's going to have a great excuse, because usually what they do is they have a list-style ballot. So the names are listed alphabetically, and also have the party's affiliation beside them. This time, for their vote to be counted, electors must write the name of the candidate of choice. As long as the elector's intention is clear, their vote will be counted, even if they misspell the candidate's name. Now, it goes on to say that along with the candidate's name, it should have been Smith, but along with the candidate's name, electors can also write the name of the candidate's political party. But if the elector writes only the party's name, their ballot cannot be counted. It must have the name of the elector's preferred candidate. Now, this riding has been conservative since it was the boundaries were redrawn. So it's voted 100% conservative.
Oh, but, no. I think I can correct you on that. There was one candidate.
Oh, he quit. Walked over the floor.
Across the floor.
Yeah.
When he was elected, he walked across the floor to become a Liberal, and the riding got a lot of concessions from him doing that. And that's the last time probably anything from Ottawa ever came to that riding. And the next election, he ran as a Liberal candidate and was defeated because the people in the riding like to shoot themselves in the foot, and then they got nothing from Ottawa after that. So just a little history, folks.
But specifically, he wasn't. He got elected as a conservative.
Yes.
So they've never
smart enough to walk across the floor when the Conservative government wasn't doing anything for his riding.
My point is that they've always voted Conservative, regardless of whether he walked across the floor or not. So it seems pretty safe, except for the fact that on all those other ballots, the name Conservative or Reform or social credit was beside the name, so they were easily picked
Yeah.
out. It didn't matter. It didn't matter who the horse was running in the race. What mattered was the colors that the horse was wearing, and
Well,
so
I would say it didn't matter what donkey or jackass they ran, because the
so yeah.
horses,
So
they'd never
well they
put a thoroughbred horse in any race in a conservative riding, in my
well they
opinion. But
they think this is going to be a shoe in, which I would take as an insult if I was a voter in that district. I would think, look, you guys are taking advantage of me by unloading this guy that was rejected in Ottawa, and I'm not, I don't feel like I've had a decent opportunity
well,
to
it's
vet
like
this
being
person.
thrown a used condom. I mean, what good is it to you? It ain't gonna help you or protect you. And that's all they
Corey,
did was take a used piece of condom
Corey, I
from
would,
another
Corey,
riding and threw it into
Corey,
this
I wouldn't,
riding.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, there you go.
But glad you
Bareback
brought,
Mountain. We
glad you
got a
brought that up.
bareback cowboy coming to Crowfoot Crossing, or the Crowfoot Battle River riding. Bareback Mountain's coming for you, you rednecks. I have
anyways,
no idea.
I'd be insulted if I was
Big insult.
a voter in a riding where they had parachuted in a candidate just because he couldn't get elected someplace else, and he
And the
wants to be able.
candidate that gave up his seat had a lot of good credentials. So that's really mystifying. But he did get a good appointment for his patronage. He got a great job after that.
I don't know
Little
what
money,
that
a
was.
little money goes a long way.
Well, you're giving up a pension. You're giving up free flights to Ottawa.
There you
And
go. You
get
gotta get compensated at least 3-4 times that.
yeah.
So yeah, he did well.
But the issue before the voters has to be: are you going to stand for this? Like are does it matter to you that you're being abused? And they had a choice of 4 other ridings apparently that are almost as safe as theirs, but they
Yeah.
chose this one because it's close to the Calgary airport, right? It's you
Well,
can,
I don't know
you
about
can
that. I mean,
well, no, but
I
you
think
don't want to be in
it was
Tuktoyaktuk.
selected. I think it was selected because the guy decided he could get enough rewards for giving up his seat. Each one of them was offered a price to give up the seat, and I'm sure it's just because this guy didn't care about his riding enough to represent them and said, I'm going to line my pocket and put this candidate PeePee in place of me. He had no care for your riding. So that tells you right now the conservative that you voted in did not care about your riding, because he knows PeePee will bring nothing to the table for you.
And again, send a letter to a letter. Send a note, a notice to the Conservative Party that you won't be abused.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to look at Poilievre's record in inconsistencies. He's always talking, he'll do this, he votes exactly opposite. His track record is less than stellar. I mean, if he's the best the Conservative Party can provide for the leadership, you don't have to worry about him competing against Carney, who is an international banker fighting Trump. This Poilievre, he doesn't even have the credentials to even be in the same playing field to deal with Trump and our trade issues and expanding business and marketing. And why don't you just ask him, what's he going to do for your riding to bring in new business? What's he going to do for your riding to bring and strengthen the farm community? What's he going to do to strengthen Wainwright so that we have some military preparedness if Trump tries to invade Canada? Or is PeePee going to side with Trump and Smith? He comes out publicly saying, "Oh, I'm for Canada," but all his actions show that he's not. And he sides very strongly with Smith. So what is it? You can't talk out one side of your cheek and then talk out the other side and then do exactly opposite of what is expected or you said you would do. And that's what PeePee does. He is just spin doctoring everything, trying to garner votes so he gets a bigger pension. And already I think he gets way more for pension than he would deserve for just having represented a riding and done nothing for 20 years.
He's got his latest statement on X is the Liberals' $750 billion gift to President Trump. They blocked the LNG export plants. So the Americans now take over the European energy market. Carney has not approved a single cubic foot of gas to be exported overseas despite extraordinary legal powers to do so. He's just another big talking liberal. Now, apparently he doesn't realize that just last month, the LNG facility out in Kitimat has started exporting natural gas. So I don't know what he's talking.
Are just for his riding, but folks, most of your natural gas has been depleted in your riding anyway. That's one of the problems is when you're having a politician just catered to the voters in the riding he's representing, he'll make off the wall stupid comments like that. And if that's what type of representation you want for your riding, you'll have it because he has no understanding of the oil and gas industry in your riding. And ask him who's going to pay for all these abandoned wells in your riding. Who's going to pay for all the lease payments that aren't being paid to you, the farmers. And that affects the local small town because that extra money has to come from somewhere. And if it was paid, the farmer would spend it in your local community. And that's not happening. So why don't you just ask direct questions and see what type of rhetoric and spin doctor he's going to spit at you. And basically he's going to be spitting at you, which is an insult. So take it for what it is. When he's spitting rhetoric at you and doing no meaningful action, he's just spitting at you. Go look at the other candidates and see who best represents your values and morals and ethics in the riding to generate you, the people of that riding, a better future instead of a depopulation. Maybe you should look at repopulation in the area by creating a stronger economy and more jobs. PeePee can't bring you that.
I'm just wondering what LNG export plants Carney didn't approve. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Poilievre realizes that, you know, first of all, you have to develop the gas field, which has been done. Then you have to put in the collection and the pipeline, which has sort of been done, but needs to be done. The Liberals were criticized by the Conservatives for pushing through the gas pipeline in the first place. And now what you have to do is start that process all over again, perhaps off the East Coast, in order to export gas from the offshore Newfoundland resources. But I don't know how he has the gall to say that Carney hasn't done that, and therefore the Americans now take over the European energy market. They took over that market when they brought in the sanctions against the Russians. And it miraculously happened right on the right time that they were opening their plants on the East Coast for loading LNG and had all the pipelines in place and everything was ready to roll. When
the other issue is all these foreign companies are the ones that are being sought after to invest and build these LNG plants in Canada, and they're sought after to build all the pipelines. And guess what? They have LNG in other countries, and they already have it. And they're not going to cut into their profit margins because Canada is the last person to the boat. And Harper, under his government, could have built LNG. Liquid natural gas was in demand back then, and he refused to push anything through or facilitate it. And why? Because they rely on foreign corporations to tell what we're going to have for industry here in Canada. PeePee isn't going to change that. And what we really need to do is become like Norway, crown corporations, doing it in the best interest of the people, and then paying royalty checks back to the people, just like it's done in Saudi Arabia. And until you get that into your head, folks, you're just on a treadmill going nowhere because the rich and the wealthy foreign investors are telling you what the policies are going to be. And PeePee is always running to them for advice and policy. So that's all you're going to get. What are you researching now?
Well, one of his one of his punchlines on, I guess he posts on X, is that the Carney promised the strongest economy in the G7, but gave us the second highest unemployment rate. Is
Wow.
what his
Boy,
is what he
that guy
said.
is pumping bullshit left, right, and center. And basically, bullshit is lies, folks. If you're going to be lying to your voters, guess what you're going to get? Shit. And it's going to be on the inside of your cowboy boots. And that cowboy hat he's trying to tighten around his head is cutting the circulation off to his brain, and you're buying all the bullshit coming out the front end. I don't see that as a smart choice for Alberta. I don't see that as a smart choice for your riding. Vote somebody local that understands your riding, because you're not going to get anything from this guy. I don't even care who you vote for. Go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. They'll all be better than him.
Well, Trump was smart. He fired the person who gave the statistics he didn't like.
Yeah, that's definitely, this rhetoric and lies and following the standards set by Trump here in Alberta has got to come to an end. It's showing unintellectual digestion of data that is not appropriate for people to make informed decisions and use critical thinking. And that's Pierre Poilievre to a T. He is using rhetoric and modeling off the U.S. style of politics, and that is not Canadian, that is U.S. And we do not and should not accept that as a standard for politics in Canada. We are higher educated than the U.S. We have the ability to comprehend the real issues and tell us exactly what policies and why you're going to implement those policies, so we can make informed decisions as to whether your hat's screwed on too tight and cutting the circulation off to your brain. And I suggest that's happening in PeePee's situation, because he's parachuting in because he was totally punted from another riding that understood his lies and bullshit.
So I have a question, a constitutional question, Cory. If Alberta separates, what happens to Poilievre?
He's trying to run against Smith.
or parachute back to somewhere else, like Saskatchewan or Newfoundland.
Well, no, Saskatchewan wants to leave with Smith, according to Smith. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So there's where's he gonna go? He'll be a cowboy without a horse to ride into the sunset with him, unless he's gonna tag up with Smith and be her sidekick, which I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, Smith wants to be
he'd want to be the leader. Smith would have to be his sidekick. I don't know.
Well, Smith wants to be the founding father of the new country of Alberta, Saskatchewan. So I don't know if you call it El Saskatch or Sac Elta, maybe. Sac Elta.
I don't know. It's that's a good point. And he come out and said he's for keeping Alberta part of Canada, but he talks out the side of his mouth with forked tongue all the time. And you can't trust that that's his position. He changes with whichever way the wind blows. So, no, I wouldn't trust this guy as far as his hat can be blown. Well, it won't blow off because it's sucked so tight to his head, cutting the circulation off. Okay, I don't have much more to say other than maybe you should check out this Bonnie Critchley or the Liberal candidate, or just go eeny, meeny, miny, mo and pick any candidate that's better than Poilievre. There's 200 of them that are better than him, I guarantee you.
I'd like to know what he got paid. Damien Carrick. Like what?
He got a lot of money. He sold you out, voters, and anybody that sells out my vote, I would never vote for whoever replaced them, ever.
There's a lot of
is a sellout. It means you can't trust them.
there's talk about how he sacrifices pension. He was only 6 months away from his government pension.
Sure.
He he could have hung in for 6 months and got his pension. So I'm sure there's got to be some compensation for that.
Oh yeah, cash in hand is better than two in the bush, you know what I mean? And that had to be a pretty lucrative buyout, and the non-disclosure of the buyout tells you that you can't trust PeePee at all because he's hiding facts from you. And if he's willing to hide those facts of what it cost you to get him to represent you, that's a person you do not want representing you at all. And you can mark my words, folks, when you vote him in, because your hat's screwed on too tight to your head, cutting your circulation off for critical thinking, or maybe you got your MAGA hat on, you're going to really pay the price by voting this guy in, and it will be laughable as to all the stuff that he can do to harm your riding.
So apparently the MP landed a role with a government relations firm called Upstream Strategy Group.
Yes.
That apparently he brings a unique perspective on the needs of rural communities and industries vital to the prairie's economy, allegedly.
Well,
No, it doesn't.
I mean, he's in the Battle River, runs right through his riding. Now, if he's such an environmentalist, maybe he might know a little history of his own pollution in his backyard just on the Battle River scenario that might explain downstream contamination issues. I'll let you explain that because you're pretty much an expert on that. And this MP represented the riding in the past and never dealt with this one issue. And I'll let you expose it, sir.
Well, it's both a federal and provincial issue. The
Correct.
river ran adjacent to the garbage dump of the Ponoka Hospital, and the Ponoka Hospital was in existence before Alberta joined Canada. So it goes back, I don't know, 1906, and it was a hospital for mental patients. Alcoholism, VD, lung diseases, you name it. They were locked up in a prison type home, I guess, in some of them.
Yeah.
But they also had a massive garbage dump on site. There was never a graveyard associated with the hospital, even though inmates were dying on a regular basis. My guess is they were incinerated and moved to the dump. And the guess is based on the fact that I know an engineer who was excavating the dump in order to put a sewage lagoon in it and discovered human bones amongst the garbage. Not only was there human bones, there was mercury, there was arsenic, there was lead, heavy paints. There's no record of the destruction of the X-ray machines. It was all dumped in the dump. And when the dump was opened up, the water, the runoff, went into the Battle River. And south of that river is an Indian reserve.
Yeah.
And that reserve has huge health issues because they eat the fish out of the river. It's disgusting. It's a whole topic in itself. And the government, the cover up and the net. For example, an application was made for disclosure to obtain the books and records of the hospital. Guess what? They went missing. And the individual who mentioned that he had them got fired.
Yeah, don't figure, eh?
Yeah, go figure. They've never surfaced. And that hospital did all kinds of things. It did experiments for the U.S. military using LSD. It castrated individuals. It's a shameful history, yet it's been ignored and covered up.
And that's also ignored and covered up by your MP because everybody that's representing your riding should be looking after the best interest of voters in your riding, and that means researching what's going on in your riding. So this cover-up has been going on for a long, long time, and you might want to ask PeePee what he's able to do about the cover-ups, and was there any criminal acts? Were the intentional acts of cover-up? These are things that you, the people that are affected by this water running through your area, and a lot of people have caught fish out of the Battle River and eaten them, and guess what? You were eating contamination. So this is a very serious environmental concern for Alberta, that this is just one of many cover-up environmental cases that the Alberta government and the federal government covered up. Years ago, Fish and Wildlife used to have the power to investigate cases like this, and guess what? The Alberta government took away the federal fisheries licenses given to all the biologists that work for the Alberta government, because they did not want the federal fisheries officers signed to be able to override what was going on in Alberta government. And these licenses were pulled away by the Alberta government because they would bring attention to issues like this. And that's where, if you're talking separation of Alberta, what are we really going to get here when we have governments willing to cover up and hide health dangers to every person in a riding? And this Battle River health issue affects you in your riding. And I bet you it's a hot take that you're first hearing about it from us.
The dioxin level was so high in the samples, soil samples, that the report said that they were wrong. So rather than retesting the area to find out whether the samples were right or wrong, they just said
buried it and hid it.
Yeah, they said it was so high. It was so high it had to be wrong. Now the provincial government, when it removed the garbage, they dumped it in front of the grain elevators there in the town of Ponoka. Right. They filled in the area between there and the river with garbage, and I'm talking vials of mercury and oh.
So the whole area is contaminated now. They spread the contamination out so that the people in Ponoka now are being exposed to it en masse, and it's horrendous to think that an MP that has that river running through it hasn't done something to dig up the history and try to deal with the environmental. And now he's appointed to be in charge of environmental advisement somewhere in the province.
It was the Minister of Health provincially that was in charge of the reconstruction at the Ponoka Hospital. He didn't listen to anything. All he was concerned about is his name go on one of the wings at the hospital. Basically, he could see the hospital from his house. He said, that's all he cared about was, I think it was $600 million was put into the redevelopment of that hospital.
Well, I mean, hopefully voters in the riding of PeePee there pay attention to what we're saying, and you've got some environmental issues right in your own backyard that the federal government should step in and override the provincial government, and they have not.
And I'll leave you
one big strong issue: clean up your messes.
I'll leave you with one more news flash. Apparently, okay. Carrick is supporting Poilievre.
What?
the winner of the riding is supporting the guy who he gave up his seat so that guy can run in the riding because it's so safe. And I'm thinking, shocker,
you got
right?
A turncoat telling you that he's supporting the guy coming in that replaced him and paid him so much money. I mean,
it wouldn't have left.
That's the ethics and the morals and the character of the people that you want to represent you. Time to get better representation. Battle River, Crowfoot, you can do better.
I'm not a
see you do better on what is it, August 18th that the election is?
I'm not. Yes, but I'm not a NASCAR fan, and I turned it on one day because I was, hoping there'd be a crash between commercials that I was watching on some other channel, and the announcer, it's getting near the end of the race, and the announcer said that the experienced guys know that they have to be out in front at the end of the race to win, and I'm thinking, wow. That's a news flash. It's like the guy that, gave up his seat for somebody else and said, "Oh, well, I support him." Well, how is that news? Is that the best you can do? Like, can you tell us what it is you're going to do once you get into power? You're going to listen to the guy that
No,
you
they just a
replace.
pat in the back and say, vote for us because I behind this guy, you voted for me, I now vote for him. It doesn't matter what he brings to the table, you vote for him because he's such a nice guy. Well, maybe you should dig a little deeper. That's all I can
Anyways,
say.
I guess we should leave it there.
Yeah,
So
that's
anyways,
gonna be,
don't vote for that crook is what we're saying. Vote for any of the other
gladly
100,
vote,
199 candidates,
yeah.
like
We
send a
wanna hear
message.
your comments below, and maybe you should start asking about some of these cover-ups and why relatives and people have health problems from eating the fish in the Battle River. You might want to investigate a little bit, because we're not bullshitting you. We're calling it as it is. We're shooting straight from the hip, and there's no rhetoric involved here. If you're a dickhead, we're calling you a dickhead, and don't vote for this dickhead. Okay, catch you later, folks.
Good day.
Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and please share the video. Don't be afraid to share this commercial with your friends too.